Hey friends, and today on Fretted Friday, I'm bringing you a little bit of a review, an overview of my Brian May Red Special by Burns. Coming right up. Yeah, lots of you asked about this guitar when I put it on the front end of another video recently, and it is another of my own collection, and I love this guitar. This is a Burns that was bought in 2006, and as it says on the tin, it is a Brian May guitar. After Guild had built the original copies, the Burns Guitar Company took over producing these guitars for Brian May. And I particularly like the Burns one because of the pickups. So in this video, we will have a little chat about this guitar, how it differs from the real Red Special, and also we'll have a listen to how it plays. First of all, let's talk about the specs on this. It is a mahogany neck, a mahogany body, all solid, and that differs from the Red Special itself because the Red Special was just a veneer on the top. This does have a cap because I know that, like the original Red Special, there are some cavities in here. It's not for weight relief. As Brian explained himself, it's because it allows a little bit of the top of the guitar to resonate and increase the feedback on his guitar anyway. So let's talk about the old lady. Originally built by Brian and his dad Harold was an electronics engineer and was building loads of stuff for home, and he built their own telly and radios, believe it or not, and he also helped Brian build this guitar, but not before he bought Brian and his first guitar, an acoustic guitar, for his 7th birthday. And it was around the sort of time that he got it, or a few years later, that electric guitars were becoming more and more popular. Due to the influence of people like James Burton, he was really interested in playing a little bit more leady style stuff. Brian decided to make a pickup for his acoustic guitar out of an Eclipse magnet, and it kind of worked and kind of didn't work, and they couldn't afford to buy a electric guitar for Brian. And so as a result, his dad Harold decided that they would build a guitar for Brian, and the Red Special, or the old lady as he calls her, is the result. There's a lot of really interesting parts. On the original guitar, the neck was made out of a fireplace mantelpiece and the body was made out of an old oak table. So it's likely that both the neck and the body on the originals were a cross of oak and blockwood, and it did have a mahogany veneer or a mahogany cap on the top. Another of the things I really like about the Red Special is the design of the cut, the double cut that Brian's come up with, because it does give really nice access up to what Brian calls the dusty end. I think that's a lovely expression. I anticipate it's because a lot of people don't often play right up here, so it tends to get dusty, and it certainly does To those of you that are guitar players, you'll know how difficult it is to get that dust out from between the pickups. This guitar by Burns differs significantly in that it's got a Wilkinson tremolo, but the trem that Brian and Harold built was made out of a motorbike shock absorber spring behind here in a sort of a big black plastic plate, and the trem itself was just a floating knife edge trem. And Brian was probably, if not the first, one of the first to create a roller bridge, because all of the saddles on his bridge had rollers on them. And you'll notice that, like the original Red Special, this copy does have very, very straight strings through the headstock. And that is another thing that Brian come up with, because by keeping it straight and having as low friction nut as possible, this has got a graphite nut on it, which you can hear. And that means that the friction there and also the friction over the rollers on Brian's original guitar means that this guitar is pretty much frictionless. And actually, even with this modern Wilkinson replacement, it still does a pretty good job because of the fact that the strings are straight through the headstock, and there's a 0 fret for another thing, which was a good design, and then this frictionless nut. So a real innovator. In fact, the bar on Brian's whammy was a piece of his old saddlebag bike rack, and it had one of his mum's knitting needle caps over the end of it to make it look somewhat more like a Strat. But Brian and his dad were great believers in not doing anything by halves, and they really went for the ultimate in guitar and tried to innovate. And one of the things that they innovated really well on was the pickup configuration. Originally, Brian did wind the pickups himself, but found that they made a whooshing sound. And so he went into a local store and asked about pickups, and they had a set of these Burns Trisonics. And so he bought those, the only bought part of the original Red Special. And I believe I remember him saying that they cost 9 guineas for the 3 guineas each. And these pickups, by comparison and conversely to most guitars these days, are not wired in parallel, they're wired in series. So you'll get the ground going to hot, and the hot from the first pickup going to the ground of the next, and then the hot of the middle pickup going to the ground of the neck, and then the hot of the out going back into the electronics. Each of the pickups is switchable on and off, and each of the pickups is phase reversible. So you can reverse the phase on each pickup. Obviously, it makes no difference on any single pickup, but once you put 2 pickups and you put one out of phase with the other, it reduces some of the frequencies that are picked up, which gives it a kind of a cut sort of sound. Although, because of the fact of these wired in series, this guitar really does add to the amplified signal. Even though each of the Burns Trisonics of themselves are only 7 kiloohms, so fairly relatively low output, because they're in series, they all add to each other, especially when they're all on, which is one of my favourite settings. So the great thing is you can have every single Strat configuration. So you can have bridge, bridge and middle, middle, middle and neck, and neck. There's the 5 Strat positions. But in addition to that, on this guitar, because of the switching, you can also have the bridge and neck, or all 3 pickups on. But it doesn't end there, because of course any one of those pickups can then be put out of phase with the other 2. giving another 3 configurations. So 10 configurable sounds out of this in total. And also, because of the phase issue, you can add another 3 on there, because it does make a difference then whether you put them in one phase or the other. So a load of options on the sounds from this guitar, which is fantastic. Brian's renowned for playing fairly light gauge strings. He plays 9 to 36s, and he also uses a sixpence to pick with. That, in combination with a treble booster into Vox AC30s, is where he gets his beautiful chiming tone from, in addition to the lovely resonant response of the Red Special. Brian's guitar originally had 220K pots, logarithmic audio pots, which I really like, definitely for the volume, because it does, our ears work logarithmically. So the fact that a log pot is exponential and sounds to us like a straight line, whereas a linear pot will sound very much like suddenly jumping up at the last minute. But he also put a 220K logarithmic pot in the tone alongside a 0.2 microfarad capacitor, which was paper in oil capacitor. And for me, the subtleness of the logarithmic pot on the tone also is really nice and really musical. And so really clever design, very simple, straight out from that, but very, very innovative. We're very lucky, and on this one, the Burns guitar, it's got Grover, and they are locking tuners. So as you pull the string through, they lock off on the string. So this is quite a little innovation as well. That wasn't a feature of the Brian May guitar, and the Goto, sorry, not the Goto, the Grover tuners on this are particularly nice. It's a nice touch from Burns. I haven't actually taken the backplate off of this. I think I've only actually had to restring this once since I've had it. And I used to take this on holiday with me everywhere because of the short 24-inch scale length. It actually, in its gig bag, it's really easy to put in the back of the car if you're going somewhere local on holiday. So it used to be my take with me and play through the Line 6 pod on headphones, so I didn't disturb anybody. So there you have it. Also on the original Red Special, the trem bar, or the whammy bar, was straight, whereas this one has got this interesting and actually very ergonomic bend design on it, which I really quite like. Now, obviously, the reason that I like the Burns over the original Guild copies is because Burns were the only part that Brian originally bought for this guitar. He bought Burns pickups. So I thought it was really quite fitting, and it was part of my decision to buy a Red Special because I really like the idea of Burns taking over from Guild. I have heard great things about the Guild ones, and I believe that these may well be made in the Far East, whereas I don't think the Guild were. But I really like the idea of Burns getting involved. So I bought this in about 2006, 2007, and I've had it ever since, and I've thoroughly enjoyed playing it. So I really hope you've enjoyed having a little look over this guitar and discovering another one of my personal collection of guitars. And I hope you've enjoyed the sound tests that have interspersed this video. And as always, please be sure to let me know in the comments down below what you think of this, and also let me know what you'd like to see in future videos, because I've got lots of original guitars, non-fake guitars that I'm more than happy to show you guys. And all you need to do is just let me know if this Fretted Friday concept is one that you enjoy. I will be back really soon, usually most Tuesdays and Fretted Fridays now, with more content. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Consider sharing it with your friends if you really liked it. And in fact, it can't hurt in any case to subscribe if you haven't already. And when you do, don't forget to click that bell icon so that you get notified when I make other uploads, which I hope you'll find equally as interesting. I'll be back really soon with one of those. And in the meantime, as always, my good friends, you take good care.